You need to realize that when you do good and when you work hard, people notice.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care who you are. And he said he didn't want to take credit for making history. And I'm like, you made history, one, by encouraging Black people to be a part of your caucus. You know, this in 2022, that was the first time the Progressive Conservative Party ever had Black representation.
I see.
And it's a matter of connecting with people to learn the tools, to see yourself on the other side of that little barrier that's in the way and achieve your goals. And you can do that. There's over 74,000 Jamaicans, I believe. We have a lot of Black African Caribbean people in our city. But being a Black woman from the 80s, I understand that many Black people did not feel connected to the city because it was not a place that really encouraged us to participate.
I see.
So I wanted to change that. I came in with the goal that we need to burst open the doors.
Hello everyone, you're welcome to this very beautiful program which is called Breaking Barriers. This is the program where we bring you behind the scenes of the lives of icons, people who we assume are walking on water, and we try to understand what exactly is it that makes them tick. What we found out is that they're not succeeding because they don't have challenges, they're succeeding in spite of those challenges, and I'm happy to bring on board a lady who leads very little introduction in Brampton or Ontario or Canada, for that matter. Her name is Charmaine Williams.
Hi.
And Charmaine Williams has just recently regained her position as the MPP of Brampton Centre and also the Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunities. You're welcome on set.
Hello.
And it's great to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Now let's get to the point. Recently, I watched a video where you said in your words that I am walking or living history, and I couldn't agree more. The little I know about you is that you were the first Black councillor in Brampton.
Black female.
Female councillor in Brampton.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the first minister, associate minister in Ontario.
I'm first Black cabinet minister with the Progressive Conservative government.
Great. I've seen that too. And guess what? You're the first guest on this show.
Really? Well, there you go.
So, there's still a lot of things ahead. So having said that, has it always come naturally for you to be the first, or was it something that just let me say that, to what extent is this deliberate and to what extent is it for teachers for you? You
know, I didn't think about politics as a career choice.
Okay.
And I definitely came into this world, you know, with really strong parents. Parents who took a risk in moving from England to come to Canada.
Okay.
And I actually come from a family of risk takers when it comes to making major immigration and country moves. So my grandparents were part of the Windrush generation that left from Jamaica on the ships to England.
I see.
And my grandparents, my dad's parents, set roots in England. They had 5 kids, and when my dad was in the UK, he said, you know, he wanted to come to Canada. And my dad being Jamaican, he was moved like so many families did back in the day, where the parents would go set down roots and then send for the kids.
Yes.
So my dad moved to England when he was 12, but he was one of 5, and he said he wanted to explore Canada. And my mom moved to England from Jamaica to study nursing, and so she was a nurse for a number of years in the UK.
I see.
But you know, followed my dad, and the two of them had this dream to come to Canada, and that's when I moved to Canada in 1980.
Wow.
As a young child, and we settled in Brampton.
Oh, wow. So you've been in
So I've
Brampton,
been in
okay, from
Brampton
get-go.
since 1980. One
Wow.
of the longest serving leaders in the city that come from Brampton. And so I've been a part of this city, but being a part of the political structure was never something I thought of.
I see.
And I think when you are an immigrant coming to a country that is starting to become more, that is diverse, but you start to realize that the barriers that we thought were there to prevent us from getting into politics are not really there. And I'm privileged to have the education here in Ontario and to see myself as a leader in politics because I grew up in this Canadian system where if you wanted to run, you could. And I just said, you know, I'm going to go for it. And plus I had really great people who'd done it before. That, you know, I just said, let me go and see if I can take the chance.
Wow, that's great. I mean, to think that you've been in Brampton for that long. So what are some of the things that are different between the Brampton of the 80s and the Brampton of 2025 that, you know, particularly for the Black community?
Well, the Black community, we were very small.
Okay.
We were small, but there was a strong Black presence in Brampton and Bramalea.
Even then? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was. And, you know, but Brampton was a small city.
I see.
Like 70,000 to 120,000.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It was very small. And, you know, when you're a Black person in the city that was predominantly white, there were many white people lived in the city. There were some, you know, you had to deal with racism.
Yes.
You had to deal with discrimination. You had to deal with, you know, always not feeling like you're welcomed in the room.
Yeah.
Now, we had a really great community in Bramalea, and so we started in the C section, and my mom and we all went to the church, St. Joseph of Nazareth, back in 1980, because we were Anglican from England and from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And we welcomed with open arms. So our church, yes, it was predominantly a white church, but you know, when you're bonded by God, it doesn't matter who you are, right?
Yes.
And so we had a very great, warm, welcoming community. And when you have a great community, couple that with knowing that there's no barriers when it comes to country with parents who are risk takers, we really just loved the city. And yeah, it was very different. There weren't that many new neighborhoods.
I see.
The 410 was just one, like very small. I think it was built in 75, but it was not the 4-lane highway that you see now, or the 6-lane highway you see now. Many neighborhoods didn't exist. Everything above Beauvert. We moved to Caledon in 1986. Wow. And when my parents, because they're risk takers, when we moved to the country, which is just outside of Brampton, the road to get there was Heart Lake Road. Okay. It still exists. Yes, but Heart Lake Road was dirt.
I see.
From Beauvert all the way up to where we live, which is north of Beach Grove Side Road.
Wow.
Way up there.
Wow.
Yeah, dirt road.
Wow.
But it's since been paved. But that's how Brampton has grown, and we've seen such an amazing growth in immigration and people moving to the city, and it's just added to the vibrancy of the city of Brampton.
Wow, that's really remarkable. I mean, you've lived it. You're paying back, as it were. A city that has also, you know, been there for you, as it were.
Yeah, and you know, you see the challenges, and I think the challenges that my family grew with in, you know, making sure that all communities are represented. It was important for me to be there at the table. I always say you need to have a voice at the table.
Yes.
And I worked in the sector in children's mental health, worked in that sector for almost 20 years. Okay. I worked with a lot of families who were experiencing challenges. Challenges from poverty, challenges from mental health issues, you name it. And it's the decision makers in government, they're the ones that are making decisions for many of the vulnerable sectors. Yes. And many of people, like all of us. And so where are the voices for the most vulnerable? Where are the voices for the people of color? Because at the time, there was no there was no diversity in politics, and I wanted to make sure that we have voices. So a good friend of mine, when she ran for city council, for Caledon City Council, she won her election in 2014, and she said to me, Charmaine, you need to be at the table. There's nobody there that has the experience that you have from social services and counseling and therapy, and your experience would be so valuable. You need to be at the table. And that was the first little
where the seed was sowed,
right?
Yes.
When the seed was planted,
yes.
like, the mustard seed.
Yes.
The seed was planted for me to start thinking about being in politics. And because she was there, a woman was there, it said to me, like, maybe I could do this. And one thing about women, when you see other women doing really amazing things, it encourages you to see yourself in that same position.
I'm sure many are encouragers watching you right now.
Well, I hope so. You can do it. And I often say I'm an accessible person. I try to be.
Yes.
I am a mom. I have 5 children. I'm a busy person.
Yes.
But I love talking to people to encourage them to not see the barriers as major walls that get in your way of success. Right? Barriers are just that. They're small barriers. But picture a barrier like a drywall, a piece of drywall that you can break through at any time. You can get down any wall in front of you. Even if it's a concrete, steel reinforced wall, there's always tools that are used to break walls down.
That's true.
And so it's a matter of connecting with people to learn the tools, to see yourself on the other side of that little barrier that's in the way, and achieve your goals. And you can do that.
Yeah, you can.
Talk to me. I can help you.
Thank you so much. Again, you're a role model in many ways. I'm looking at your hairstyle, which is unique. Is that does it come with the brand, or is it because I met you the first time I met you was last year? No, it's 2025.
Yeah.
It was the 2023. There was a Nigerian, I don't know if it's called the flag raising. It was the flag raising October 1.
Yeah.
And then I saw you, and I kept looking, wow, this is unique.
Yeah, when I was a counselor, actually after I had my 5th child, and any mom watching, when you have lots of kids, you have to simplify your life. And it was just about convenience, and I used to actually have more of my head shaved. I need to get a good touch up now, but I used to have all of the hair underneath completely gone. And then COVID, I stayed home, couldn't get to the barber, so most of it grew out. So that's why half of my hair was growing out. But yeah, it's really convenience. But I guess, I like to show that you don't have to be so cookie cutter. We're so unique. And I'm a politician, and I hope I can encourage people to think of themselves, regardless if they have, short hair, blue hair, white hair, or, have a really quirky style. You can still be a leader.
That's nice. That's nice. Now, as a leader from the Black community who found herself being in the minority, if you will, as a lady first and then as a Black person, what are some of those barriers, what are some of those challenges, stereotypes you've had to navigate in order to assert yourself, establish yourself, encourage yourself that yes, it was the journey worth taking?
I think because this is an environment that did not have many Black people in it. Politics really is difficult to get into, and you need good champions. And when I ran municipally, that was my first rodeo, I guess you could say, at politics. And I had a good team around me, good people that helped me in the election. It was a very small team, like 3 people. But we had a good strategy. And at the time when I ran municipally, we looked at what were the issues that Brampton residents were faced with. And at the time it was high speeding. A lot of people were speeding in the city. And we also found it was 2018, and we had a lot of gun violence. And so I brought that to the doors. I had a petition because I figured, you know, we are a municipality that, with the Peel Regional Police, used to have gun amnesty programs where every other year they would collect guns that people had that were not being in use to get them out of the homes. And I just thought this is something we can do to even bring visibility and recognition to the fact that guns are an issue. And so I asked the question, I did a petition, do you want to see the region of Peel, but the city of Brampton, incentivize people to return their firearms? And I had went to door with a petition, and that got a lot of attention. People were very interested in putting their name to something that may be impactful, make some change, and send the message that we are a city that does not want gun violence. That petition really helped me open the doors, and I also, in an election, you have to door knock. You know, we just
I've heard of it.
Right? And so I door knocked every single day during that election, from the end of July until Election Day. I was still out door knocking, October 22nd in 2018, and I made sure that people saw my face. I wanted people to see that I am coming out to your door to show you that I'm here to support your voice and be your voice at City Hall. It resonated, and you know, people really did make a connection. So I won that election. I'm still floored that I won the election, because I know winning elections are not easy. But yeah, that made me, you know, I made history being the first Black woman to be elected to Brampton City Hall. But it opened doors. It opened doors.
We'll talk about some of the things you did in that first term, and it was congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so, viewers, we'll be back after this break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello viewers, you're welcome back to Breaking Barriers. We have the privilege of hosting Charmaine Williams, who's the MPP of Brampton Centre, as well as the Ontario's Associate Minister for Women's Social and Economic Opportunities. She's done a fantastic job, and no wonder she's gotten back, and I know that she's poised to do even better. In the first segment, we discussed her journey into politics, and she talked about how she became the first female councillor, Black councillor in the city of Brampton, and that she opened a number of doors. So what we're about to do is to get to know some of those. One I know and I'm interested in is the office called the Coordinator of Investment Attraction Coordinator. It's my understanding that that's credit to you.
Yeah, you know, the first, you know, being the first Black woman in Brampton, it was so important for me I actually kept saying, City Hall is your hall.
Yeah.
You know, you need to come in and be a part of the activities. And so I was elected in 2018.
Okay.
And that means, and this was October, and I was sworn in December 2018.
Okay.
But that also meant we're approaching our first Black History Month as an elected official in February 2019.
Yes.
And I met with staff, and I learned that the city of Brampton hosted very small Black History Month events, and they actually required staff who are Black to take time out of their day or take time off to participate or help plan. And I said, no, Black History Month, this is an important month. We have Brampton is made up, I think the Black population is growing, but we have like over 150,000 Black people in the city.
Wow, that's a lot.
We do, it's a lot. And our Nigerian African community is starting to grow significantly. There's over 74,000 Jamaicans, I believe. We have a lot of Black African Caribbean people in our city. But being a Black woman from the 80s, I understand that many Black people did not feel connected to the city, because it was not a place that really encouraged us to participate.
I see.
So I wanted to change that. I came in with the goal that we need to burst open the doors. So the first Black History Month celebration, and actually indefinitely, I worked with the city staff and I said, we need to put funding towards this. So we allocated a budget towards Black History Month events, and we got the community involved, and we had one of the largest first pushes. We had an opening and an ending. It was wonderful. And ever since 2019 February, Black History Month has grown into what it is now.
Yeah.
And I feel very proud of that seed. I also had the privilege of going to Nigeria, and the first time we went to Nigeria, yes, because we had a lot of business interests.
Okay.
From other countries. The city of Brampton had a whole economic development department at the city.
Okay.
But it did not have a connection to any countries in the Caribbean or Africa.
I see.
And I said, when we have so many people who are entrepreneurial by nature, who have businesses in Africa and the Caribbean, we have many businesses in Brampton that are Black owned. What are we doing to support them? How are we attracting more business people to come into our city to put down roots and grow? And so, we went to Nigeria for the first time, went to the Canadian-Nigerian Economic Summit.
Wow. And
that was a huge eye-opener as well. And so we came back, and we did that. There was so much stuff I would like background to it, but we did it at no cost to taxpayers. So it means the city of Brampton did not invest in the trip. We found ways to make it work. I wanted the city to, because like I said, the city was going to Turkey, the city was going to Germany, the city was going to all of these different, the US, all these different countries, but it did not have a budget to travel to Africa or the Caribbean. And the first time we moved a motion, wanted to, there was some, politics, because one of the things I did experience was a lot of pushback on the things I moved, emotions I moved, and I didn't get a lot of support. And
no surprise there.
No surprise. And it wasn't. I'm a Black woman.
Yes.
Right? I know what it feels like to be discriminated against. I know that as Black people, we always have to work harder to get the same bit of recognition that other people do. So I got it. I understood it, and I said, that's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep pushing forward. Because at the end of the day, we are in Canada.
Yes.
We do experience discrimination and racism. So it didn't let it stop me. We found a way. And came back from Nigeria, and at the time, the staff there was an amazing staff member, Francis Bradshaw, who was in the mayor's office. We worked together on a motion to create a foreign direct investment coordinator position for Africa and the Caribbean. We moved the motion. Mayor Patrick Brown supported us. He moved the motion because that's how I had to do it back then. If I moved it myself, I might not get it passed. But he moved it, I seconded it, but Francis and I wrote the motion together. And that's how we were able to get the coordinator position that is now being held by, I believe, Uche.
Uche, yes.
Before it was Erica.
Henry,
the first
Henry Jackman,
person in that position. But now it's held by Uche, and they're off to the races. That's what I love. We plant the seed, we make it happen, and they're growing it into something beautiful.
And to your credit even more, Brampton is the only city in the entire country.
Only country.
Oh man, that's
only city.
That's remarkable.
That's right. We also did that for at the time it was called the Anti-Black Racism Unit. And we did the same thing, wrote the motion. Patrick moved it, I seconded it. So we can, have an office and a space and opportunities for the Black community in Brampton, because it was needed, We saw George Floyd murder. We had to address the elephant in the room, that Black people face anti-Black racism in Canada. And how can we break down those barriers? It's by creating proper systems of support for our community. And so we were able to do that. We have that back then it was the Equity Office, Anti-Black Racism Unit.
Okay.
But then we also moved the motion for the Equity Office, which is something I'm very proud of. And the Equity Office has evolved to incorporate. Yeah, I moved to incorporate the unit into the Equity Office to work together. But you see, all of that work that we did. And bringing in the staff to do that work came from having representation in council. Okay, it's because I was there. We were able to make sure this happened.
Wow.
A number of things. I even moved the motion to have the Emancipation Park in Brampton. Emancipation Park is a park, it's a freedom park. It's a park to celebrate the emancipation of slaves. And there are only 3 emancipation parks in the world.
What in the world?
And one in the States, Texas.
Yes.
The other one is in Jamaica, and the third one's here in Brampton.
We should call it, not just call it Massachusetts, we should call it Charmaine Williams. Honestly, I moved the motion.
Right now, provincially, I'm working with my colleague Hardeep Grewal to have a multi-purpose stadium built there, and we're working to make sure that happens, that we get the funding for it. So then that way we have a stadium that can have host sport events, but also music festivals. And I know the African community has great music festivals. Well, we're working to make sure Emancipation Park has the resources and has the space to be able to host events.
Looking forward to that. Emancipation Park. So is it physical? Does it exist?
It exists. It is right at Dixie and 407. It's a massive park. It's beautiful.
And it's in use?
It is in use. It has cricket pitches and soccer fields. And that's why I chose it, because I said, what do Black African Caribbean people play?
Yes.
We play cricket and we play football.
Soccer, yes.
And so I chose that park because of the beautiful fields that it has there.
Wow.
And that park is called Emancipation Park.
Wow. So now, considering all you were able to do and working as juggling as a, not juggling, being a front end
feels like juggling sometimes.
You did mention earlier that you mentioned your 5th child. So I imagine there were personal sacrifices that were made along this journey.
Yes.
What does it take to be a woman, wife, and a mother operating all this?
It takes really good people around me.
Okay.
So I actually, having Malcolm and the events that happened after having him was really the kick in the butt.
I see.
By God for me to take this journey and shift into politics. So 5 days after I had Malcolm, the 5th child, I suffered a massive brain hemorrhage.
Wow.
Yes. The brain hemorrhage really changed everything for me. And so women, if you have a headache, right? Listen to your body when you're feeling ailments. I think all of us need to. Oftentimes as women and as especially Black people, we are so go. You got to take time to take care of yourself and recognize when your body's telling you signs. Well, 5 days after I had him, I had a brain hemorrhage, and I was in the hospital for quite a while, like a good 2 months, recovering. And my husband, Steve, was just a great guy to help keep things moving. But I also had family and friends, a lot of people who are prayer warriors. Yeah, so the brain hemorrhage that I had was a wake-up call for me, and it was a long journey. My husband was there every step of the way, but I had a lot of people around to help and support. And that's why I made this shift. I figured if God didn't take me, clearly there's something else He wanted me to do.
Yes.
And when I was, got back on my feet, I was given full clearance by the neurologist in May of 2018. And then after that, I was nudged and encouraged to run for the city councilor.
You took a major leap from there. I mean, from literally down, you went.
I do. God puts things in your heart. And I think sometimes He makes major things happen to you for you to listen.
Yes.
And I was always afraid of doing things outside of my comfort zone.
Okay.
But when you realize that life is short and can change at an instant, why are you stopping yourself from doing the things that, you know, that he wants you to do? They say fear and faith can't rule in the same house.
Yes.
At least not for long.
Yes.
You can have some fear, but when you have faith, that fear is completely taken over by faith and trust in God's path. So I decided to walk it.
Take the step. And that's where you're walking on water. Back to what I said in my intro.
No, I followed him. He said, you know, he said, keep your eyes on me and you will not fall and drown. That's why I'm following him.
Wow.
And
And let me take a moment to acknowledge Steve, your husband, for the support. 5 children is a lot, but being able to combine that to enable you to step up is a big deal. And I think that's something that many of us black men need to recognize, that it's okay to celebrate our wives and let them, you know, let them take that leap. It's one major orientation those of us from Africa actually need to have, because back home, the odds are skewed more towards the men. And so when you come here, the first culture shock, even if it's not stated a lot of times, is that the man suddenly realizes that the environment is more pro-women for good reasons. And so some women realizing that also then begin to flex. So there's an element of, what do you mean? And if care is not taken, that can go south very quickly.
You know, a strong woman needs a strong man to be there. And when men support their wives to be the best versions of themselves, your wife will make sure that you are the best version of yourself as well. You know, women take care of so much. We do. And, you know, when Doug Ford called me to say, and this is the first time, you know, I have to give Doug Ford so much credit, the Premier of Ontario, and he's a strong man who looks for the best people. He doesn't care what your background is. If you are coming with good intentions, you're willing to work hard, he wants you on his team. And Doug Ford saw what I was doing as a city councillor, and he said, I want you to be on my team.
I see.
And I thank him every day for seeing the work that I put in. And when Doug Ford, you know, this is why sometimes you need to realize that when you do good and when you work hard, people notice. And he doesn't care who you are. And he said he didn't want to take credit for making history. And I'm like, you made history, one, by encouraging black people to be a part of your caucus. You know, this in 2022, that was the first time the Progressive Conservative Party ever had black representation.
I see.
And Doug Ford did that because he wanted black candidates.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, making that choice to have black people in our caucus, he chose me to be in his cabinet. And choosing me to be a cabinet minister, he helped make history, because I'm the first black person to hold a cabinet position with the Progressive Conservative government in history. And I think so many young people need to see this. And I wish that, you know, there was much more acknowledgement for this move. When you have representation, the same way I was talking about it when I was a city councillor, provincially, we are the government that made black history legislated in our Ontario educational curriculum.
Wow.
We did that.
Wow.
Why? Because representation and the education of the contributions that black people have made throughout Canadian history is so important for our communities to learn.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So we've also been the government to expand the Black Youth Action Plan, which is funding going to black organizations that help youth expand, elevate, and grow. And we are also we provide funding through my ministry, funding to black women's organizations. Roots Community Services is helping women grow businesses and become economically stable and independent. You know, we are doing so much because representation is here in our province. And I want everybody watching to know that you have a premier, Doug Ford, that cares for our community, wants to see our community successful, and wants to see us grow and become economic drivers for the province. Our community, especially Africans, Nigerians, Caribbean, we are entrepreneurial.
Yes, we are. You can say that again. Now we survive under intense, situations, and we just need a little shift, a little push, and we'll be. Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need somebody to see our potential.
Yes.
And to see that when we have an opportunity,
yes,
we go all the way.
Yeah. And but also I think part of it is also having those who are front runners like you, doing the right things, because you can imagine if the opportunity you have had been misused or whatever, then it's just like you were playing the scripts. We behave the way they assume or we are, and people like you make it very difficult to turn a blind eye, because obviously you're hitting the right tunes. And that's why personally I don't live in Brampton, but someone who looks like me was very much support of ensuring that you got back, and I'm very happy that it has turned out the way it has. So the journey is just beginning.
The journey is just beginning. We got a long road to cover. With Doug Ford and our government, we know we're all going to be impacted in some way by the trade war.
Yes.
But wherever change comes through crisis,
yes,
right? And right now we are setting ourselves up to be an even further larger economic powerhouse, because we are looking at growing businesses and doing interprovincial trades.
Let's hold it right there, because part 2, we're going to be talking about tariffs. We're going to talk about the impact of her role as a new minister and a lot more. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Minister.
No problem. Thank you.